Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Match Day. I'm Vince. We have Ian. Ian, let's just do an audio check. Do we have you?
I am definitely here.
Great, great. And then our special guest today is Jeff Shuk from Michigan. And Jeff, just quick audio check. Let's make sure we got you.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can. Perfectly. Thank
Fantastic.
you. No need for the second computer. So, Coach, thank you so much for coming on. And everybody on the other side, thank you for joining us. We are hope all of you had a good weekend. Nice long weekend, right? Everyone have a good weekend?
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Ian, did you say you went to the Evel Knievel Museum?
I've lived in Kansas 8.5 years, and I had not really ventured west of here, Kansas. So I ended up through Lawrence, which is where KU is, into Manhattan, which is where Kansas State is, and then to Topeka, where the state capital is. And I found a lot of interesting Kansas things, including the Evel Knievel Museum.
Ooh.
Which was, I took a photo and said, I know I'm in Kansas now, because that's, and then the Koch brothers, the guys who are into fracking and oil and very conservative, they're from Kansas too. I learned so much about Kansas this weekend, some of which I didn't need to know, but there you go.
Wow. Wow. And then Coach, how about you?
Just a nice, simple weekend with the family at the lake, learning that I literally am not an athlete anymore after I failed miserably on the paddleboard.
Oh, but that's hard.
Thank you for taking my side.
No, that's challenging. No. You're a great athlete.
Oh, Jeff, you just said I'm not an athlete anymore. That would tend to suggest you considered yourself an athlete at one point, right?
Somebody had to.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. We got some dogs barking next door. I hope my dogs don't get going. But yeah, I ripped up carpet all weekend, so there you go. And I am still sore. So, Coach, thank you so much for coming on. Let's just real quick before we get going into the session, which, by the way, you're gonna present a kind of a goalkeeper session for us. If you don't mind, maybe sharing your journey. Like, how did you get to Michigan? How did you get to where you are today?
You know what? I literally grew up in my playing days as a youth player out west in Nevada. Played through the ODP system out in the Nevada State Select team. But my dad lived back here in Michigan. So as one 18, 19, 20-year-old would tend to get in a little bit of trouble, it was time to come back home and have my dad whoop me back into shape. Continued playing here. Had a very, very brief professional career back in the old USISL with the Detroit Wheels. And then went on to play on some very nice amateur teams with the Detroit Arsenal throughout the 90s and early 2000s, actually winning 2 U.S. Amateur Opens as a part of that group of great players. Started coaching as I was doing that when I was smart enough to realize I was not going to be a player. So went through all my coaching badges through the 90s, was lucky enough to get involved in education, come across Ian and yourself, and be able to work with, at that time, the NSCAA. Teaching courses, been a long time coach and director with our ODP program here in Michigan.
Very good. And for those that haven't had the chance to have Jeff as an educator, he's outstanding educator. I think we did that one together in Saginaw.
We did. That was a blast.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a good one. Well, Coach Barker, anything to start off with?
I'm fortunate to work with Jeff fairly regularly during the summer and with our ODP program. And I think one of the good things about the way we train goalkeepers now is they're much more connected to the group. We don't send the goalkeeper coach and the goalies away all the time. We all sit together as coaches to work out what's in the best interest of all the players in the team as one. So I know that's the kind of spirit of a lot of this information. Obviously, the goalkeeper is a unique position with special abilities and skill sets. But he or she is not remote from the rest of the team. And I think we're doing a much better job of expressing that these days.
Yep. I mean, yeah. I don't know. I'm helping out with the high school team, and I just tell the kids, the goalkeepers, just keep the ball in the net. So That's it. That's all you got to do. All right, well, let's more than that. So as coach, you're going to present. So I'm going to share my screen, and I apologize. By the way, anybody that wants this, coach, can I share this with anybody that emails me?
Absolutely.
All right, I'll try and share it in the system, everybody, but for some reason our system seems to have a hiccup today. So if anyone does want this, just email me at vgansberg@unitedsoccercoaches.org. I'm going to go and share my screen. And you might see my granddaughter, or you may not. Let's see. Nope. Can you see me or see the screen?
I can.
Coach Barker?
Yeah, all good. I can see the screen. It's a little small, but I can see it.
Okay, let me see if I can. I don't know, is that better? I enlarged it.
Yeah, I think we'll be able to get the gist of it from the pictures. There's no need for the words. I can go through those.
Is that better? I just enlarged it even more. So.
Yeah, that works perfect then.
Okay, and then can you see my red arrow?
Yep.
Or no? Or can you just see a mouse moving?
No, I can see the big red arrow.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so if you want, we can just start with, we can just start with this warm-up, or basically the whole gist of it. That'd be great.
Yeah, what I'd like to do with our goalkeepers is to make sure that they're prepared physically. So I didn't go into the details of our dynamic warm-up or any of that. So we're just starting the activity in this phase where we get the balls into action with the keepers. And this can be done whether you've got one goalkeeper and some field players, or if you've got 4 or 5 goalkeepers within your group or your team. And for me, I try to keep everything as realistic as possible when we take it back to the game. So one of my little things that I try to really get across in our training environment, as you see here, the activity would start with the player in yellow, just playing a ball on the ground into our goalkeeper. And so often I see the goalkeeper being told to play it right back where it came from and then get to the next one. Yeah. So there's no real decision making within that process. So here we've got yellow, white, black, and a red goalkeeper out there. And one of those goalkeepers, you can put it whoever you like to start without a ball. So when the ball comes into that goalkeeper, it's his or her job to pick their head up, figure out which one of the goalkeepers is open, and then play the appropriate ball into there. Then we'd go to the next one, and then the open player continually changes. So we'd run these goalkeepers through a variety of back pass simulations, whether they were quality back passes, or we might ask the goalkeepers to hit a few half volleys in, so they're replicating some poor back passes and having to deal with whatever they might be given in a game. We could take that and back all those players up, and then we can work on whether we want to go longer back passes or into any kind of shot stopping and receiving and handling. Okay. And then it could be from their hands and so on. So like my whole thing is always, how real can we make it? And when we take this back into the game, is there any transference? So.
No, very good.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that change that where, they don't like get the ball from the keeper and from the yellow, right, and then give it right back. I see that all too often. Yeah, and then the thought for us is, can we put the actions after that ball comes in, can we make it as real to the game as possible? So if that yellow player's hitting a shot into the blue goalkeeper, are they actually stealing some space after they receive that ball with their hands and getting across to the weak side? Yeah. And then based on the level of our goalkeeper, we're always talking about making accurate passes. We would start to ask our goalkeepers who are receiving the passes to give the target of a foot, whether it's a front foot and the inside of it or a back foot, and then judging the accuracy of the distribution from our keeper based on that. Yeah. So the better quality your goalkeeper is, the more of the demands we would put on them in terms of that ball coming out. Not just the ball into Vince or into Ian, but am I hitting the inside foot of the front foot, taking them based on the shape of their body? So we try to keep everybody active in decision making, even the players who are only, partly involved in the activity. Yeah. And then we can take that to any distance and then any type of ball coming into our goalkeeper, whether it's a back pass, a shot, or a cross. Perfect. Coach Parker, you have anything?
No, the one thing I was just looking at there was, again, that not returning it to where it came from. So it's always a redistribution.
Yeah.
As opposed to sort of the traditional sort of back and forth with the coach. So you've just saved a shot or you've just fielded a ball. Why would you return it exactly where it came from? There's a lack of logic there. So even if it's a pug goal or a counter goal or something you're serving it to, you don't have other players. I really like that part of it.
Yeah.
And then one more thing we might do based on the amount of equipment we have, if we've got some of the flat-faced Corver goals, we may put those as barriers in front of the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
So they have to start to shape balls over lines or drop balls in between lines and really start to work on some of the nuances of distribution, starting to counterattack. So based on the tools you have in your environment, you can take this and turn it into anything you like.
That's beautiful. No, that's fantastic. Good. And by the way, Coach Parker, I can't see what's happening in the chat. So if you want to monitor that, I don't know if there's any questions.
On it. I'm on the chat.
Okay.
We're good for now.
All right. So, Jeff, which one? The one on the right?
Oh, yeah, to the upper right corner. There we go.
Okay. Yep.
So we can keep our same configuration of the goalkeepers. And one more thing, like I said, I'm going to keep going back to trying to keep it as realistic as possible.
Yeah.
Now we've got our goalkeepers ready to get into a little bit of shot stopping and handling. We like to try to put our goalkeepers in positions to receive shots that replicate the shots that are beating them in games. And anybody who's done any of the research on like where goals happen and the frequency, they're always going back to 1 and 2 touch finishes in zone 17.
Yep.
So we do plenty of our shot stopping activities in those areas. And we like to make sure the goalkeepers are dialed in from the beginning and they're actually tracking a pass and not just, hey, take a touch and a hit or players hitting dead balls. So with this activity here, we've got the player in red playing a ball into our yellow player, that player taking a touch and then trying to beat our keeper. If that goalkeeper then can receive it and handle it cleanly, they're out to find the player on the weak side and start the counterattack. So we can have any of these. It can be red into yellow and a shot, red into yellow and back to red for a shot.
Yeah.
And then we switch it up with the black and the white on the left side so that we're working the goalkeeper from both the left and right side of the field right here.
No,
but once again, just trying to keep things reality-based where the goalkeeper actually has to track a pass to get them into their set position, whether it's horizontal or vertical positioning, and then starting to figure out, is that player going to shoot or play the next one? So nothing. We don't like to get into any of our activities where the end shot is from a predictable moment. We want the goalkeeper to have to figure out, is it coming from the yellow or is there going to be a cut back into our red player?
And if I can, Vince, back in the day, the late Steve Adelard talked a lot about this. So back in the day, traditional goalkeeping, you had a stationary ball, you struck it at the keeper, he or she fielded it. And even at the level of just 2 touches, striking the ball 2 touch, that incremental, that tiny movement of the ball requires a tiny adjustment for the keeper. So, I mean, I'm sure Jeff will attest to it, but you've got to keep the goalkeepers in that realistic, unless you're practicing free kicks and penalty kicks, every other ball they see is a moving ball. So why wouldn't you train with a moving ball? And so this mixed movement of the ball and the unpredictability, I think, is key.
Hey, Coach, just in case people on the other end watching and people that might be watching later, where's zone 17?
That would be basically right where your hand is right now with that. If you were to put an equal line on both sides between the 6-yard box and the 18, and then deeper than the 18. So that box basically right in front of the goal. So if we were to,
All right. So it's almost like a second 6.
Yep. And then just outside of the 6. So if you were to divide the total width of the field into thirds and then.
Okay.
Yeah. And then just about the 18-yard box.
Very good.
This is a FIFA thing, Vince. So a number of years ago, FIFA divided the field into 18 spaces.
Yep. Yep.
So your left back position was 1, right in front of your goal box was 2, your right back was 3. By the time you build up, the top of the penalty box is
14.
zone 14,
Right.
which is what you hear about with Barcelona. And then obviously you'd go 1 to the right is 15, lower left or top left is 16, and then where Jeff is absolutely where you're trying to save shots, zone 17.
So why did FIFA do it that way?
Probably some French inspiration from Gerard Houllier or maybe Scottish from Andy Roxburgh. But I think, I mean, we talk in the coaching schools, right? We talk about 3 parts of the field, or do we talk about 4 parts? So
Right.
I think however you break it up for the kids, what I love working with goalkeepers and having that box there, though, is there's a whole bunch of dimensions which are fixed, right? The little box is 20 yards wide. The big box is 44 yards wide. You know where the penalty spot is. So there's so many helpful things for a goalkeeper and for a coach using the dimensions of the field. And then obviously building in these notions of, top third, bottom third, or whatever it is.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I mean, I know a lot of coaches don't have the luxury of having like their keepers alone in a box, right? And it's so important though for them to train in a box where they can see the lines and they kind of get a feel for it. So either one of you, what do coaches do if they don't have this situation? Just try and replicate it as best they can with cones?
That's what I do. I think it's important to have those markings down because we don't, I know I have a little bit of an ice hockey background, and we were always taught as a goalie in ice hockey to look back or touch your post to get your bearings straight. Well, in soccer, the field's just too big and the game's happening too quickly in front of you to take your eyes off the ball. So it's almost like you have to have that visual reference underneath you to know exactly where you're at so you don't have to turn around and find the goal. So putting down the 2 points of the 6-yard box and then the penalty spot, and then at least 1 cone for the 18-yard box so they can keep their bearings without compromising their vision.
Yeah. No, brilliant.
Absolutely. Even if you don't have the markings of the field, having some of the flat discs. So, of course, the starting position for one goalkeeper, let's say it's on top of the 6-yard box, right? For a shot or a cross or whatever it is. But if the kid is physically different, it may be a step forward or a step back. But you've got to know where those lines are.
Yep.
Back in the day, the goalkeepers would be allowed to score the field with their cleats. So they'd make a mark so they knew where they were. But they banned that, so you can't do that anymore.
Yep. No, I remember when I went, Berticelli used to teach put a cone down and practice, right? And it would like 3 or 4 steps from the goal line, depending on your verticality, your ability. And then it would be a little triangle, and it would be near post and then new post, right? And like you said, Coach Barker, I used to tell my keepers, just like really slide, just make a little mark, right, to help you. But now that's gone. Can't do that anymore. So, and I want to be ethical. So, Coach Shuk, let's move on, if you don't mind.
This just takes a little variation of the scripted patterns that were giving us some shots that we might see in matches.
Yeah.
So now we see a player coming from zone 14 into zone 17, playing a ball deep into our back player, and that player recognizing it's time for a cutback, and then engaging our player at the far side of the 18 coming in.
Yep.
So we're really having to deal with which type of shot stopping technique we're going to use, whether we're going to sit back there and try to shot stop, maybe like a Jan Oblak, or are we going to try to get out there, get as close as possible, and go and do a spread like we saw Neuer so excellently do in the Champions League final.
Yeah.
We get lots of decision-making opportunities, and then once again, we find the open player with any shot trying to start our counterattack or get us into our building up phase.
Yeah. So, this is fantastic. So where would you recommend? So the blue keeper right now is kind of off center, a little bit off center. But let's say
he's off center because he's addressing the starting point of the player in red.
Okay, right. But let's say black.
Okay.
So
Okay.
let's say the player in black. Where would you recommend the keeper be now?
Well, that's a loaded question there, because you have to tell me who the keeper is. Is it
Right.
6'5" me, or is it 5'8" somebody else? And how athletic are they? What are their nuances? Where are they comfortable?
Right.
Is the player in the black bib there left-footed or right-footed?
Yeah.
So all these split-second decisions have to be made without compromising what you're trying to do here. So hopefully that we've recognized when we start the activity that maybe we've got a left footer playing in that position.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be a little bit more aggressive on that player.
Right.
Whereas if it's a right footer, I'm thinking that I can sit back and then possibly pick off any cutback off that player because it's going to be their non-dominant foot.
Right. Right.
But I want to make sure, just for like rule of thumb, my hips are in advance of the near post. So if they do get a hold of a ball and I do parry it wide, or if I do parry it, it's going wide and not into the goal.
Right. Right.
Goalkeepers, I'm not going to say they lack the bravery, but they maybe don't have the information to realize that final position. If you're inside your goal, you can do everything right and get your hand on it, but inevitably you still pushed it into your own net. So we need to be at a bare minimum with the hips at or just slightly in front of that near post.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic, because I watch the goalkeepers, for example, this high school group I'm working with, and this is the area, when the ball is here, right on the left, where kind of my arrow is in the hand, or here, they really struggle, like where to stand, where's my positioning. So it's always good to talk about the hips and the near post and all that. And no, I was just trying to get your input, because again, people might watch this later on and might have.
We're hoping as goalkeepers we're getting a little bit of help now on players tracking runs to the far post, so that if we have that help, I can be a little bit more aggressive. If not, I have to sort of wait it out if I'm caught 1v2. So there's all kinds of variables, and that's where the separating a good goalkeeper from a great goalkeeper comes, is who can make those split-second decisions.
And just a thought here, Vince, if this was my college team, based on where I'm at now, and Jeff was going to work the goalies. Traditionally, the goalies have had services come from other goalies, many of whom aren't particularly great at striking the ball from a shooting perspective, and or the coach, right? And if you're the coach serving the ball, then you're not always in the best place to help the keeper. So these, the yellow and red and maybe the white and the black dots, for me, they would be players returning from injury that maybe can't do contact, but they can serve a ball. They might be my top strikers because they're getting some extra reps. They might be my bench players who I can't. So it's the more you can integrate players and the goalkeepers see better quality or more realistic quality, I think is key here too.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I was going to say, could it also be kids that, played 80 minutes the night before, right? And so this isn't as taxing as, for example, the 4v4 small-sided game. Could it be them too, right? So maybe they just have it's just this player here, right? The dot in white, right? They're just simply passing a ball and helping.
I think what Ian just said there is so important, that we as the goalkeeping coach become the last person we want striking balls in these critical coaching moments. Not that we can't, but the issue is, no matter how high my level of acumen is, what I'm doing, if I'm hitting quality balls, my head's down, focused on the ball, and I'm missing all kinds of critical information of when my goalkeeper got the read, when he or she was setting, and then all we're seeing is the end product and not what got us there or what didn't get us there. So finding all those other tools that we have at our disposal, players off injuries, players who are coming off of a heavy game, to be the players who are striking the ball. Plus, those guys, they think like finishers, and that's what we want in these critical positions.
No kidding. Well, great. Coach Parker, do we have anything in the chat or no?
No, just a couple of requests for the slide deck afterwards, and I've just assured Anastasia that we'll be making it available.
Yes. Yep. Just email me, and I'm more than happy. All right. So then the last one, it looks like.
Yep. And this, to me, this is always the reward. As a former goalkeeper, and then just being able to read the players who I'm coaching, they love to get out of that scripted shot stopping environment and into something that looks like a game. And 4-on-4, where they have the ability to be part of the build out, the build up. And with this distance, they're actually potentially someone who could be a goal scorer in this activity. So we get to see how they're operating with their teammates, how well they're communicating to avoid being put in poor moments. It's a slice of the game before we send them over to the full coach and the full team, and they get into an 11v11 environment where they might not see a ton of opportunities to be a part of the activity.
Yeah. No, it's great. 4-minute matches, perfect. Lots of shots. They love that.
Yep.
And, the field players are involved too. And, of course, anytime you play a small-sided game with large goals, right, it's more fun. Now, obviously, do you implement offside here? Yeah,
what I normally will do is I'll put like almost like a hockey blue line.
Yeah.
Because if not, then people end up squeezing the game, and it loses a little bit of the realism with the full-time press right there. So we just try to get a little more space so they can get that ball slotted into the box, so we can go through and apply anything that we've done in the shot stopping in the earlier stages of practice.
Yeah, fantastic. So like a modified offside line. Perfect.
Exactly.
Yep, perfect. Have you ever, I'm sure you have, right? You've changed the shape, like maybe you go like this sometimes, kind of out and angled.
Oh yeah, we dog-eared the field before.
Yep.
And a lot of it is with the relationship with the head coach and knowing what they've been working on and stressing in practice to bring out the stressors in this activity, so the goalkeepers are prepared when they get to the game.
Yeah, but their shape here replicates pretty much everything you did, right? I mean, everything, activities 1, 2, and 3, it's integrated in here. So that's a perfect progression, if you will. So
yeah, we might even take it where you had it a little bit wider than the 18.
Yeah.
And then tapering it in towards somewhere between the 6 and the 18.
Gotcha. Yep.
Yeah, but that's all the wonderful things that as coaches, we control the variables.
Yeah.
So use them to bring out whatever you're trying to bring out in your goalkeeper.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Well, I'm going to stop sharing, Coach. This has been fantastic. Wonderful.
Jeff, can you talk a little bit about sometimes when the goalkeeper coach has to remind the head coach of how illogical the training is, right? Because sometimes we set up trainings and we really short sell the goalkeepers, sometimes intentionally, but very often we don't mean to, but we do.
I do.
I'll tell you this, I have had to, especially with some of the USL teams that I'm lucky enough to be a part of, take those goalkeepers out for a coffee afterwards and tell them it's going to be okay. A lot of times the head coach or one of the other assistant coaches set up activities, and I'm going to steal one of our old Region 2 goalkeepers, TJ Tomaso. He always felt like he was in the circus in a shooting gallery. Just the finishing position with the lack of pressure just made it felt like he was working on self-defense and not goalkeeping. And they would never go to the head coach and tell him that, hey, I hated what you were doing. So I'm the guy who gets told that, and I have to go back and bring it to the head coach and say, hey, can we consider a different starting position? Or if we don't have this, can we put some mannequins in here to at least disrupt this uninterrupted flow, not only of constant shots, but no breaks for the goalkeeper. We're asking our goalkeepers to work 45 seconds, a minute, and a minute 30 without catching their breath, and that looks nothing like the game. When we start looking at research, we're at our peak performance at worst like 12 to 15 seconds before we can catch our breath as a goalkeeper. Our sets should look like that as goalkeepers in training. So trying to convince the head coaches, hey, like maybe 30 seconds, and then we'll switch the goalkeeper out or whatever it is. But they get put in a compromised position in some of those levels where they're defending themselves, and then we've compromised their safety, and then starting to build bad habits in.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say for coaches, like, look at the duration, the frequency, and the distance of the finishing, and the amount of pressure that those players are under while they're finishing, and see if it looks anything like the game. Because not only is it doing, no justice for our goalkeeper, but are you really getting out of it with your forwards what you want out of it?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I think at just a really simple level for a lot of our coaches who are grassroots coaches and not goalkeeper coaches, if you've had the goalkeeper make a save and then he or she can't get up to address the rebound from that save because they've got to shoot, they've got to go and look for the next shot, they're getting a really bad habit, right? You want the kid to make the save and gather it, or make the save and then go for the second save. If they're not allowed to do that, if they don't get the full rep, because you've got another shot coming in, they are a shooting gallery, and they're not goalkeepers. They're just people standing in there letting the ball hit them.
Yeah.
They'd prefer it miss them.
Yeah.
Oh, I would. Anyway, well, hey, Jeff, thank you so much for coming on, and I wish you and the best Madonna and USL team that you're working with, and the club with the Rush, and all the best. But except when Madonna plays Mount Vernon,
we understand that one.
Yep. But darn it, every year he gets them by a goal. But anyway, well, thank you so much, Coach Barker. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Vince.
Outstanding.
Thank you for having me. Great to catch up with both of you too. Hopefully we'll see you guys again in November down in Florida.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Yes.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks. Bye-bye.